And we are on air. My name is Marc from jazzguitarlessons.net, and welcome to your webinar for December 2018 on Take That Away from Me. No, sorry. Don't take that away. Don't take that away from me. Keep this one for the bloopers, really, guys. So up from cold Canada, we have cars starting right outside. And it seems like the engine doesn't like that cold here. So what we'll be doing today is examining the lead sheet of They Can't Take That Away From Me. I can't say the name of the song the entire webinar. So this is the December featured song on the website. Of course, we run this every month. Every 50 songs, every one of the 50 songs has a webinar like this where I go through, the content, the lead sheet, and we examine a little bit of the chord melody and all of the fun things you can get in. Typically, I will get questions and viewers live, so don't hesitate. If you have any questions, you're going to type this here. This is one-man operation. Does it look like it? Type your questions here. So feel free to type in. We'll have probably Nathan joining us later. So They Can't Take That Away From Me is a standard that is liked by a lot of singers, and they will always ask you at jam sessions to play that in a different key, personal experience. And it's a great, I guess, Sinatra. There's a great Sinatra take on it, or some other versions. What is fun with this issue this month is that it's relatively simple in the sense that we have a chord melody that is super straightforward, that uses this, sort of like walking bass and chord style, and the melodies on top. We can afford to do this because the melody is pretty simple, and the harmony it's a lot of 2-5-1, 1 2 3 flat 3 2-5-1. The B section is in a related key, and it just goes 2-5-1 2-5-1 2-5-1 into that key. So we can afford this luxury of playing walking bass with the chord melody without burning out relatively easily. For the comping study, we have another one that's pretty beginner-esque. It's sort of a I wanted to say Grant Green, but it's not the right guy. Freddie Green, sort of comp, like this. Oh, I have Donnie joining us. Not quite 5, Donnie. Sorry, you're right. I am teaching right after this, so I needed to get a little bit of a head start, so to make sure I'm not late for my lesson. So I'd rather start early than late. So sorry, but thanks for joining in. So also, the comping study has this, walking style. We call this walking guitar, walking chord style, and this is relatively easy. The hard part is, of course, to keep the focus and to keep the chords coming up one after another on each beat. And lastly, the solo is a pretty cool one because it uses and abuses blues lines, and it's a great opportunity for me to sort of get you some pointers into using major versus minor pentatonics, because that's often one of the missing links for blues players or rock players transitioning into jazz. All right, so the first step we'll be doing is in fact, we're not even on time, so it's still a minute before 5, and I've already started. Sorry, guys. You can watch the replay. That's going to be available in your account 24/7 after. You can pause it, watch me rewind, watch me make weird faces, up to you. I'm going to share my screen now and start analyzing the lead sheet. So we go over this pretty quickly. Should take about 10 minutes or so. Share screen share. Application window. Yes. Okay. Here's what you have on the screen. I can zoom this in. Oh, yes, perfect. So key of E flat major, of course, and the beat of the melody is a pickup. Right. So we have a pickup on the 5 chord, and it's a 5 suspended. Here, I'm just going to answer Donnie on the chat in case you didn't hear my answer. Sorry. Just the introduction. Okay. I'm gonna put the guitar down and start going after this arrangement. So it's a 36 bar form. So notice typically tunes have 38 bars, right? This might be a little bit too big. So at the end, if you count the bars, you're going to get 34, 35, 36. And actually, this bar is not part of the form. That's just an extra bar added by the software. And the point here is, after we get out of that B section, that in fact, it starts da-da-da-da-da-da. So that's the bar. Am I missing a bar? No, we have one bar too much, sorry. The bar numbers included that pickup line. But anyways, at the end, instead of having 8 bars, we have a 16 bars. So it's important to notice this. That's the pickup, and that chord. Those chords are a little bit high on the staff. They should appear lower here. But starting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So this is like all the things you are where you get a 12 bar. So there's an extension to the melody at the end. Careful, because at jam sessions you can sort of get lost easily when you don't pay attention to this. So let's just go over the chords, because the melody, you've probably heard it a million times. The way you did, the way you did, da 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 da. And again, and the second time, da 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 da, ending on the tonic on the E flat note. So I'm not going to talk about the melody because it's so simple. I'm just going to go over the chords one by one, not too fast. So key of E flat major. Let's look at the first 2 bars. 1, 2, 3, flat 3, diminished, 2 and 5. And then it will, of course, go back to 1, not immediately, but we'll explore this more in depth. So here's the point. We have this G flat diminished 7. I don't like this. I prefer the little like degree sign. But the point is, this is called a passing chord in between the 3 and the 2. So they give E flat major, 1, 2, 3, flat 3. So the flat 3 is, it's a downwards motion passing diminished chord that is tense, that is not so fashionable anymore. It sounds old school, right? It sounds like 1932, and it's just part of the song. And people even will you can put 1, 2, sharp 2, diminished to 3. That's not on the sheet, flat 2. So adding passing diminishing chords it's a typical trait of standards, and you can do it pretty much anywhere. In the case of the song in question, it's used in bar 2 and then that second bar of every A section, because then 1, 2, 3, flat 3, 2, 5, that's a real 2, 5 in the key. And then surprise, instead of going to 1, we go to another sort of 2, 5 here. So I'm going to keep these 2 chords outlined. This is a secondary 2, 5 to A flat major. And A flat major happens to be the 4 chord. The 4 chord is one of the most important chords after the 1 chord, because it's they would call it a neighbor chord, in the sense that there's a lot of common notes in between these 2 chords. If you're in the key of C major, then of course, if you play blues in C major, you're going to go to F eventually. So this is the same relationship between that E flat at the beginning and that A flat here. It's 1 to 4. So standards often go to the 4 chord in major. Makes total sense. And the case here is that we have a 2, 5, 1. So our E flat chord is not a major chord, it's a dominant, because that's minor 2, dominant 5 to 1, but 1 actually is 4. Pretty simple so far, right? So 1, 2, 3, flat 3, 2, 5. We're going to 4, and this is passing, and then we start over with our B flat 7 sus, which is our 5. Melody starts again, da 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 dee, right in here. That's the gist of it. We could split hair here on the C7 and G minor. One of the ways to come about it is to understand that this is actually an F minor 7 chord. They're equivalent. So if you have a B flat sus 4, like you play like this, like in the chord melody arrangement, and instead of a B flat, you play that's an F. I'm playing with my other hand. then you realize that the top of this is just an F minor 7. So the G minor 7, C7 coming right before is actually another manifestation of that secondary 2-5 right here, right? That's 2, that's 5, and that would be an F in an ideal world. Yeah, so you don't have to play those chords. It's just the way it is, just the way it appears on the sheet. Now we're going to look at the second section. So it says bar 10. Actually, here it should say bar 9 because we typically don't count the pickup notes as part of the form. So this is actually bar 9 because bar 1 is the one that starts after this double bar right here. All right. So we call this the second A section, right? So same 1, 2, 3, flat 3, 2, 5, then 2, 5 to 4, we have 4, and we have 5, 1. That double bar actually is in the wrong place. It should be here because that's where the G minor sounds. So the only difference between this and the first time we saw the A flat major is that this goes G minor 7, C7, and B flat. So B flat is like, oh, we have our foot in the air. That's the 5 chord. We want to go back to E flat major. Well, this is that, no, we don't want to go back to E flat major. A flat major 7, B flat 7, E flat major. We've landed, and that's where we're staying. Okay. After we've made a statement to stay, and we kind of concluded these 2 8-bar phrases, then we're going to have another 8-bar phrase that has a pickup, right? And that's in G minor. So this is, of course, a minor 2-5 in the key of G minor, A7 flat 5, D7 flat 9. I'm going to start, whoops, screen problem. That's an interesting feature. Haha, saw this. Okay. And we're here. Okay. G minor, D7, G minor, D7, that's 1, 5, 1, 5, 1. And bar 3 of the bridge does one of my favorite moves harmonically is G minor to E flat, E minor 7 flat 5. So you know, it's very badass. I find this. So this is a 1, 6, 2, 5 in the key of G minor, and 1, 6, 2, 5 in minor is just very deep, very badass. So 1, 5, 1, 5 in minor, 1, 6, 2, 5 give G minor, 1, 5, then again 1, 5. I hope you see my mouse on your screen, guys. 1, 5, then we use the G minor as a pivot to use G minor 7, C7, because we want to go to F. Why? Because F is the 2, and B flat 7 sus is the 5, and we're up for one more round. And starting here, where it says 26, actually should be bar 25. We have the last reiteration of yeah, so last 12 bars, 1, 2, 3, flat 3, 2, 5 again, and then we have once again that whole thing going into A flat major, which is a 4 chord. You see this A flat major right here, and then it does the same thing as a second iteration of that A section, and it lands on E flat major. However, we're not finished because we have one more turnaround. So 3, 6, 2, 5, 1 in the key of E flat major is what awaits us for the last 4 bars. And the point here is there's a problem with the amount of bars, but not the amount, but with the numbering of the bars. So that should be bar 35, 33, 4, 5, and 6. And the little spin is that after we have the E flat major chord for that last time, before we do a little bit of a turnaround, we have E flat major 7 followed by A flat minor 6. And the secret sauce is that E flat major, transform it to E flat minor, it contains the same note as an A flat minor 6. It's just an interesting little look at how you can perceive that chord. Did I say that right? No, that's not right. No, scratch that, sorry. So E flat major 7, would be equivalent to, never mind, no equivalence, it's just the way it is. So it's 4 minor, basically. So instead of being 4 major, A flat major, we go to 4 minor, and then 3, 6, 2, 5, 1. Good. I think that summarizes it. Yeah, just be wary of those last little 4 bars at the end that they're added. And when you're improvising, actually, I'm going to share this also. No, is it going to work? No. Sorry. You are sharing your screen. Stop. Okay, I'm going to share my screen again. I'm going to show you my other application. And here we go. Here you go. So here, this is iReal Pro, guys. I think you know I'm a big fan of the software. And this is clear how this is 4 and 8. And then there's a repeat bar here, and then 4 and 8. And then you end here, and you wind up going into, okay, we go to G minor through a 2-5. All right, that's clear. And you see that's 4 and 8. So this app, it shows you B section. It tells you that's the end of the B, then the last A. But look at the last A. 4, 8, 12. It's like, aha. And then when you play, you have to be careful to know when you're in that last A, or or perish. Know that you're in your last. This is Mark again from jazzguitarlessons.net. I'm terribly sorry. I was sharing my screen and I inadvertently stopped. Sorry, I'm gonna adjust this camera a little bit. We good? I stopped I did this last month also on they can't take that away from me, right? But I did last month start on another song and shared my screen, and then I went, instead of going stop sharing screen, I just stopped broadcast. So now, I'm sorry if you were watching this live, you can always watch a replay. We're going to talk about the chord melody now. I think that's enough analysis for the first 17 minutes. So I'm going to put this chart on my screen, but you won't see it. I'm not doing any screen share in the fear of ruining the moment. The particular thing with that chord melody arrangement is that it's a beginner one, and you have to be careful that you can implement the basic stuff before you start to do the chunk. So there's 3 separate challenges. I'm gonna grab my guitar so you can see my beautiful chair with a cat hair on it. I used to have a piano bench, but I actually fell and banged my chin on that table, so I'm not trusting that guy anymore. He's over there, he's chilling over there. So here we go. When I said in the beginning you have this and the chord melody arrangement actually goes bass, so I'm gonna keep going because it's fun. And then I'm messing up. So right there's the second challenge I wanted to address. So we can go over certain aspects, but number 1, it's important that you get the chunk going. The bass. Da, 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 da. This should not be, it should not depend on anything else you're doing. Actually it was messed that up. So the point is you have to get going with that spirit of continuous bass, continuous playing, so it never stops, because the problem with most, let's say, beginners and intermediates is that you will cheat yourself and you will wait until this guy is ready before you do anything with that guy. And reality is if you give it an inch, it's going to take its time. So you have to do it no matter what, even if you're not ready. And it means I will recommend that you use the Scotch tape method for this, that I recommend to everyone, but especially if you're nailing a part that's difficult. I'm going to take bar 2 in the chord melody arrangement, and just to give you an example, you have to, almost split your brains like a piano player, like right hand and left hand, right? So, sorry. So right there you have, that's a top note that would be considered right hand, and then at the same, while I'm gonna sing it, you have it's not too complicated, but still catching that end of 4 you have to be really careful. So putting it all together, make sure you can play this 2, 3, 4. Make sure that this is really solid in time, because when you add your bass and you're not solid in time with the top part, it's not going to forgive you. So bass, and you keep going like this. It's humbling, because at some point you're gonna have to slow down way slower than you used to, and you're like, why? It's like learning bossa nova comping. Sometimes you're like, I know these chords, I know these things, but how come it's so hard to play that second 8th note, or that it's because it's things you're probably not familiar with. So challenge number 1, this is what I wrote down here, is to get the chunkiness. Now it just sounds like I'm repeating all the same things, but that's really the takeaway for this. You have to get the chunk. Then your second challenge with the chord melody is going to be, sorry, checking the screen here, okay. It's going to be, and right? And the problem with this chord melody is that it's super simple until you get to that point. And here, I'm looking at, actually it's bar 7. It's oddly numbered because the pickup bar is counted as bar 1 in this sheet. But look at A flat major, the first time we have the A flat major. Sorry. Gonna do this again. Sorry. Sorry guys. It goes better with the thumb, like this, to concentrate. Sorry. And all that is actually then there's this odd fingering. Yeah, okay, stop. I'm stopping making a fool of myself. So this is the part where you need to put in the hours for this. So you get the chunk right, then you get these little parts. So I'm going to look at bar 7, then the second time you have the A flat coming back around. It's the same thing, and it's so beautiful too. Before going back to the B section, I'm not going to ruin it, I promise. You get something similar to, am I wrong here? Hey, I got it. If you can play that as smoother than me, I hope. I didn't practice this arrangement yet, sorry. It's been a really rough December, to be honest. Really hectic and busy. So no excuse, but the point is you get these descending line, and there's one where you have an E chord, which I found very, very beautiful. That's for your pickup too. There's an E major actually. Da, 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 da. So E is a substitute for B flat 7, like tritone sub, but it is an E major. That is, so E, actually, E major. So really interesting sound. So after you nail, of course, there's another one where you have the A flat at the very bottom, which is very similar to the second A. So this is your second challenge. So chunk number 1, number 2, descending lines, tidi puti tado. Super easy to play a single line, super hard to play with chords. And the third challenge I will bring to your attention is to look at bar 25. Actually on your sheet is going to say 26. Is that whole last A section is played over an E flat pedal. So sorry, then you get and then there's a few chord substitutions, all triads, right? So super imposed. So this is an interesting little feature that you say, okay, I got my chunk going, I can play my descending chords and just sit on that E flat, but then you're gonna wind up looking at the most challenging part of this walking bass arrangement, and yet this is what you're doing under it. Okay, good. So that's all I have for the chord melody. Please don't hesitate if you have any sorts of questions, ideas, and feedback on this chord melody arrangement. And I will see you in, what are we doing next? We're going to comping, to look at the comping study on Take That Away From Me. So I'm going to see you there. We're back for the comping study here. So let me just grab this on my screen. This comping study is a steady comping using quarter notes, and this is walking guitar style. As I mentioned in the introduction, it's a pretty beginner one. However, what's going to be challenging is to get through these changes and be steady. What I recommend is if there's moves that you realize are cool, in the sense that you look at the lead sheet and you look at this comping study and like, oh, it seems like the comping study is passing chords that are not, they don't exist, you know, in the chart. So my point is, you should start a catalog of moves that you find cool when you have certain situations. So I'll give you an example with bar 1 right away. So we have this E flat 6, 6/9 actually. Repeat that. So E flat 6, A flat, so A natural 7 shell, A7, A flat minor 7, G. The tune goes ba da ba da 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 da. So you have these things happening that you might not be familiar with, and as a beginner or intermediate you might, you know, list these moves and practice them, that the moves that you like, because what we expect to see in the first bar is E flat major 7, the F minor, the G minor to diminished, G flat diminished. So what we have instead is E flat sure, then this is just attention to go down and this to go down. So what we did is we sort of targeted that G minor chord in the second bar and we filled in. So we started here, we wanted to get there. How many ways can you skin a cat? So to here is, and your bass is, so instead, right, it's great variation right off the bat. And then we're gonna look at bars 3 and 4. So 3, we'd have an F minor 7 just sitting on this, and then to a B flat of some sort. And see what we're doing. We're doing F, we're doing G minor passing, we're doing first inversion of a triad. That's F minor 7 over A flat. Then A7 is used as a tension to launch into that B flat chord. And B flat is using one of my favorite monk moves, you know that Blue Monk song? Because we're reaching here. So that's bars 3 and 4. And it's interesting also to look at the fact that every voice moves. So there's only 3 voices, right? Every voice moves, and it's congruent. It's consistent with itself. If you play just that note alone, that was just a top line in bars 3, 4, 5, and 6. It really does work, and that's where you can start to analyze the skeleton behind these moves. Even if you're like, well, it doesn't make sense with what we see on the sheet, but it actually works, and you can put, that's what I mean by moves. You can put these moves one by one in your arsenal, and then when you are at a jam session and you see an F minor 7 chord, instead of going, you can go, and yeah, people will go, yeah, man, you know, that's walking guitar. You can do it going down. So, you know, I don't, there's a tons and tons of way to do this. So as you progress further, the beginning of the arrangement for the comping study is pretty simple, and then it slowly evolves into that 4-note voicings. That's where it gets more dangerous, and as I would say, it gets less obvious the more you move forward. But don't let this discourage you from moving forward and maybe listening to it and finding moves that are really appealing to you, especially on what bar is this? This should be 20, E flat minor 7, the D flat, and sometimes you get just this, oh, there's a sense of descending motion in the bass, and there is a sense of ascending motion in the melody, or vice versa, or both, they're going up or down, and just look inside of it and you're like, yeah, you know, I'm using a chord shape I know. If I did the classical analysis of it, it wouldn't make sense to have an A7 there, but it makes sense because it's sort of a glue. It's like harmonic plumbing. You're plumbing between that chord, and you're going to hit your big milestones, but maybe you're going to take a detour to get there. And I think that's it. That's all I have for the comping study. There's no big important thing to know except you have to be steady in your comping, and you have to make sure to don't just learn it by rote, because you can just see, maybe even put the chords to the original songs on top to see how the comping study is in fact just an elaboration of the real harmonies. Like, okay, this is lead sheet, real book, minimized harmony, and then under it you have, okay, this is the way we've elaborated, the way we've arranged it, so it makes sense on the guitar. Piano players are particularly good at harmonic plumbing. See, like Bill Evans and all these great piano players, they do a great job. So that's it for the comping study. I will talk about the single note solo next. Okay, and we are almost there. So the last piece of the puzzle, sorry, on They Can't Take That Away From Me is the single note solo. And I'm not going to go over the entirety of the solo for the sake of not only saving time, but also because you have the demo video, you have the sheet, you have everything you need within that song, within your jazzguitarlessons.net account. What I want to explore with you now is how people use the pentatonic and blues scales in jazz context and make it sound so good. So number one, there's a lot of phrasing that goes into it, so you can listen to B.B. King a lot, but then you go for players that are more, I would say, intricate technically. George Benson is an example, Kenny Burrell would be another example, Wes Montgomery is a prime example of this, and like, wow, this is still just content-wise, it's still all the same notes that the blues and rock players are using, but there's ways of using it in the technical dexterity that goes beyond this. What I want to address now, and what did I write? There were a few things that I wanted to address, but number one is major pentatonic versus minor pentatonic, and I'm going to refer a little bit to that sheet on the solo for They Can't Take That Away From Me. So sorry. Then you're like, oh, this sounds familiar. Actually, this is, it would be C minor pentatonic, and of course we're in the key of E flat major. So the point here is, this is a prime example of using the major, in fact it's stating the entire major pentatonic scale for E flat major. So your job, I think, as a student now is not just learning the solo, getting licks is good, but then it's saying, okay, where does that lick come from, and how does it sound so good with the fact that we still have these 2 5-1s and these 1-3 flat diminishes, and we're almost looking at none of them in the first part of the solo, and it still sounds awesome, like Kenny Burrell style. And one thing you'll notice, there's also chord punches. So after you get this, so there's chord punches in between, which is a great habit for people to learn to comfort them for themselves within solos, to like switch gears very fast in between comping and soloing. So you're taking a solo and you're like going to a few chords, getting back. Great habit. So now that we looked at, I sort of unsolved, that's a unsolved mysteries. That's sort of a mystery that, oh, this is the E flat major pentatonic scale. You can think about it as your C minor pentatonic, because it's the same, but the root is E flat. And then bar 2 you get, and this is clearly would be. So here's my point. Within 2 seconds of music, there's a statement of an entire pentatonic scale that is major. And then there's a use of the pentatonic scale and the statement of the entirety of and that's the minor one. So the lesson here is you can combine, either play a bit on major and a bit on minor, like I teach on blues in a lot of the videos online, including the paid courses, or you can mix and match some notes of both, like going up a line and down the minor. Up the major, down the minor. Major. And minor. What you might wind up doing is just adding more chromatics in between. The blue notes for the major and the minor are not found in the same place, but if you want to write it down, you're like, okay, I'm just going to take the pentatonic and have this sort of fudged area where I can play a lot of things that I want. And now we're not even talking about like added chromaticism, like we're not talking about like knitting a little line with little chromatics. We're just talking about the pentatonic scale with the blues notes, the blue notes themselves. So I'm going to go further down into the solo, and to recap, the big idea is find how the scale is used and why it sounds so good, even if we're not doing the jazz thing. We're not playing over chord changes, we're just thinking big pentatonic, and see how in your playing it can apply to, I mean, you don't want to be a jazz player and just play pentatonics all the time, because it will sound that's a Barry Harris quote where he says, actually, this would be like someone swearing all the time, you know, playing blues all the time. So you don't do that, but then you can say there are passages where you, either if you have nothing to say, you can play a blues line, or if you have, you might be inspired, and it's, those lines are so easy to hear, we connect with them deeply, right? So you might just, you know, wing 1 or 2 pentatonic lines next time you're playing Stella by Starlight. But then again, you have to know which pentatonic, because you want to be sure that you're either aligned with the major pentatonic or the minor pentatonic. The major one is the lesser known for rock and blues players, I find. And then we're going to jump just quickly, so I don't, you know, forget anything. The B section, starting with the G minor chords, that's around actually bar 25, 12, 8, 17, sorry. And it's oddly written at the beginning of your score, is going deeper into actual bebop lines without using much blues and so this is a really worthwhile little thing to look at, because it's taking the entire B section to tell you, hey, I know I could play lines like blues stuff, but I can also spell that G minor and get these So I did not play any in there. It's too funky in a way. It's not minor enough. So that's why you start with your 2-5 in the key of G minor and go. However you wish to spell that change. And this is exactly what the solo is doing, only to go back to cool little blues lines with sixths and different kinds of intervals in the last A. So one of the lessons, and I'm gonna end with this, one of the lessons is, of course, identify which pentatonics are used and why they work in the context and why they sound so good. Identify when both the major and the pentatonic, the major and minor, are mixed and why it sounds so good, and then look at how we have a contrast. So that's a B section, and it just so happens we've contrasted into a different technique or a different way of approaching changes. This is a big takeaway, I find, because seldom will we as player have a game plan for improvising, right? So I'm thinking of me going to a jam session a while ago and just playing on Stella by Starlight. And what do? You just play over the changes, man. You just go like, this is what I do, right? There's a change and we do certain things on it and then moves and the drummer did that and cool. But when will you actually have the chance to have a game plan to add a flavor and to say, look, I planned this is my turn in the spotlight and I want to solo. I want to take, let's say a song with a good B section is a rhythm change song. And say, in the A sections, I'm going to play blues stuff. In the B section, I'm going to really nail the changes. Or vice versa. And say, the interest comes from you giving out different types of lines because you're putting your mind in a different gear altogether. So that's really what I wanted to point out. It's an interesting little lesson in self-control, planning, and also saying, if you think of blues lines, you're going to sound a certain way. If you think of spelling 2-5-1, 2-5-1 arpeggios and this and that, you're going to sound another way. And you can switch between the two gears to add interest in your solos, because contrast is always good. Too much salt is just too much salt, right? And you reach a point where you don't want any salt anymore, all right? So that's it. On that note, I will let you go. Thank you for having been part of this sort of failed webinar. I'm sorry, guys. It's the second time I do this. So thanks for joining me. I'll just take a note here, not to forget that we need to still upload this stuff on the YouTube channel now. If you have any sorts of questions, comments, ideas, feel free to comment on this YouTube video here on YouTube. You can comment in your student account on the website on jazzguitarlessons.net itself. If you have access to those standards through your membership, you can get all of the standards in your student account. Will have a webinar. If they're in the past, there is a webinar with it, like this, pretty much me or Nathan rambling on the camera. Great place to ask questions. Other people will come to the rescue and help you and think of certain ways to approach these challenging arrangements. On that note, have a good evening or a good day or whatever, and I will talk to you soon. See you soon on jazzguitarlessons.net. Improve your jazz guitar playing with a real teacher. Take care.